This is Sweet June. How's everybody doing this evening? I'm hanging in there. Um, what I want to talk about is I noticed that since Trump got elected, I'm not trying to get too heavy into that discussion, but there's been a lot of instances of racism, a lot of racial incidents happening against Black people, and racism is seems to be for 2016. Racism is at an all-time high. It's just getting crazy out here. I mean, it's just at an all-time high. For 2016, it's just really crazy. It was already crazy before the election, and now it's even worse. A lot of the white people feel like it's okay to attack Black people now, and a lot of racial incidents has been happening all over the country of so-called Trump supporters that's doing all this stuff on top of the racism that we're already enduring. So that brings me to my current topic of what I want to talk about is this is a message to all Black people. This is a message to all Black people about racism. Um, I know I was marinating on it earlier. I mean, over the last few days, I've been marinating on all this stuff that's been taking place. I've been watching the news and I've been seeing how Black people have been getting attacked. It's been more racial attacks against Black people. I don't know why these people think it's okay to do all this stuff now. I don't know why. I don't know if they think they're going to get away with it. Um, it's crazy. On top of the racism that was already getting really, really, really bad. Um, Satan's time is short, and so he's turning up the heat for one thing. That's why a lot of this stuff is happening. That's kind of you can link it to Satan. A lot of it to Satan. Um, I mean, if people are doing it because they're evil, but Satan's turning up the heat, and he knows that racism is one of the tools that he can use. Because these are the last days. We're getting close to the very end, and his time is getting really, really short. So basically, Satan is turning up the heat. And we have a lot of evil people in this world, unfortunately. But I just want to, I know over the past few months, I don't know about you guys, but over the past few months, I've been really, really struggling. I've been really, really struggling. I'm going to be honest. Um, at the end of the day, we can, I'm a Christian. I try to be a Christian, try to serve God as much as I can and try to be the best person that I can be. But at the end of the day, I'm still a human being and I'm still human at the end of the day. And I still have feelings, all the same emotions that everybody else has. At the end of the day, no matter how much we try to serve God and how much we try to do what's right, we're all imperfect. We're all imperfect, and at the end of the day, we all have the same feelings and all have the same emotions and everything. But the thing is, when you're trying to be Christian, when you try to be a Christian and you try to serve God, you try to channel those emotions in a positive way, and you try to learn through prayer how to deal with those emotions the best way that you can deal with them. You try to rely on Jehovah God to deal with those emotions. That's the difference between being in the world as a non-Christian and being a Christian and serving God. You have the same emotions and you have the same feelings, but the difference is that you try to pray, you try to lean on Jehovah God, and you try to pray, and you try to channel those emotions in a positive way, and you try to pray and you try to ask Jehovah God to help you to deal with the various different emotions. And I don't know about you guys, but the same at the end of the day, I'm human. Everybody's human at the end of the day, and we all have the same feelings and everything. And we're all imperfect, so we don't always, it's just as difficult for a Christian to deal with a lot of the emotions, anger being a primary emotion, when you thinking about racism as somebody else, you know. But the difference is that you don't retaliate, or you don't do some of the things that some other people might do because of the fact that you are trying to serve God. And that's the question that comes to mind, over the past few months. Like I said, I've been dealing with a lot of anger about racism. I've been really, really angry. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be frank, and I'm gonna be honest. But I've been dealing with a lot of anger about racism because this is 2016, and a lot of things that's taken place. It's just unbelievable, and we're supposed to be way past a lot of this stuff by now, but we're not. And I don't know about you guys, but I've been struggling over the past few months trying to deal with the anger, trying to stop from getting really, really, really extremely angry about racism. And I've been praying, I've been making it a matter of prayer and been asking Jehovah God to help me deal with the anger. But sometimes I get really, really angry. I hear about a black man getting shot by the police, and after he done had his hands up and everything, and I get really, really, really angry. When I hear about and I see things like that in the news, I get really, really angry. And I pray, and I just, over the past few months and everything, I've been really, really getting angry. I don't know about you guys, but I've been really angry about racism because it's just, I'm outraged. It's just ridiculous. And so I just pray as a Christian. I try to just pray and try to ask Jehovah to help me with those feelings that I'm having, and to help me to, but it's very difficult. It's very difficult. So that's the question. How, as African Americans, how do we deal with the anger? How do we deal with the anger that we have about racism? How do we deal with it? Like I said, as a Christian, I try to pray about it. I try to channel those feelings in a positive way. I try to read my Bible. I try to meditate on spiritual thoughts. I'm constantly trying to meditate on spiritual thoughts. But it's very, very difficult. At the end of the day, we're all human. I'm a human being like everybody else. And it's very, very difficult. How do we as African Americans deal with the anger? How do we deal with the anger? Because it's like, this is ridiculous. It's like, it's hard enough being a human being out here. It's hard enough just being a human being and dealing with human problems that everybody deals with, like dealing with everyday problems that everybody deals with across the board. Like there's things that we all deal with across the board, no matter what race we are. And so it's hard enough just being a human being and just dealing with life, just dealing with, life happens type problems as a human being. And then you add the element of being black to it. And then you have to deal with all this racism. And then you have to hear about all these racial things happening, and police profiling, and all police shootings and all this stuff. And now, since Trump got elected, you got all these racists running around thinking that it's okay to attack black people and all this stuff. And it's like, it's hard to not be angry about all this stuff. It's really, really difficult to not be angry. I remember expressing a couple weeks ago, I expressed to some of the sisters at the hall, I was like, I just like, I'm just trying not to be really angry about this stuff. I'm just really trying to not to be really angry. And some people say, well, don't watch the news. But if you don't watch the news, you need to know what's going on. I don't think it's not healthy to not watch the news at all, because you got to know what's going on in the world. You got to know what's going on in the world. If you don't know what's going on, then, it could be something really detrimental that come knocking on your door and you don't know why it's happening. So, I mean, at this time and age, and where a lot of things is taking place, a lot of things is popping off, we gotta watch the news. We gotta stay in the loop. We gotta, I gotta stay abreast of what's going on. And so, how do we as African Americans, that's my question, how do we as African Americans deal with the anger? I want you guys to talk to me. I want you black people, male, black men, black women, I want you guys to talk to me. Let me know in the comments section, let's talk about this, of how you deal with the anger of racism. How do we deal with it as black people without retaliating and everything, and some people let anger build up, and particularly men, they let the anger build up to where one day they just explode, and we don't want to do that. The Bible talks about us not being angry, and so it's just very difficult because I know I've been struggling over the last few months. I've really been struggling, and then another question comes to mind is that how do we as African Americans not view all white people as being racist? Because there's too many. I don't believe that all white people are racist, but there's too many of them that are, and it's just now. It just seems like since all this election stuff is going on, that the racists are coming out the woodworks, and the racists are rearing their ugly heads, and they're just coming out the woodworks, and they're just doing all this stuff, and it's just like really seems to be really manifesting. And so how us as African Americans, how do we the differentiate? I can't say that word. How do we tell the difference between how do we show love? The Bible says that we have to love thy neighbor. It talks about loving thy neighbor, and we have to love thy neighbor and everything. And how do we not look at every white person and say, oh, they're the enemy, they're racist or whatever? How do we not do that as black people? And that's very difficult with all the racism increasing on a daily basis. How do we do that? How do we separate? And it's very difficult. It's very difficult, and I just it's just difficult. How do we do it? I mean, I know as a Christian, I try to treat everybody with kindness. I try to treat everybody with love and kindness. I try to treat everybody with respect, regardless of what color. I don't care what color you are, white or black or whatever. I try to treat everybody with respect and everything like that. But I know, like I said, it's a lot of anger, a lot of black people that are angry. And when a lot of them are angry, what do they think? Some of them, do they think that all white people are racist? Or, how do we stop from thinking that? And the only thing that I can come up with personally is how I don't think that is I just get to know people, and I try to judge them by the content of their character. I try not to judge them by their race. I try to judge them by the content of their character. But, we got to admit it's very difficult sometimes. It's very difficult. I know sometimes, I don't know about you guys, I have trust issues. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to cut to the chase. I'm going to be honest, I have trust issues with white people. I do. I'm going to be honest. I have trust issues with white people because I've experienced racism before. I've had to leave 2 jobs because of racism, and I've experienced some racism in my life, and I have trust issues. It's always in the back of my mind, even though I try really hard to not lump all white people together and all this stuff, and judge people by the content of their character. In the back of my mind, it's like that suspicion. Because I don't know about you guys, I do have trust issues with white people. Now granted, there's some black people that I don't trust. There's some black people you can't trust out here. But I do have trust issues with white people. I'm just gonna be honest. Not bashing or nothing like that, but I'm just gonna be honest. How do we deal with these feelings? Because it's like you don't know. Sometimes you don't know if they thinking this or they're thinking that or whatever. Sometimes you just don't know, and it's like, how do we as black people deal with those emotions? And I know they say that I've done a little research in the past, but I haven't. But I'm gonna do more extensive research, and when I do, I'm gonna come back with a video. I'm gonna talk about it. But it has been studies that has shown that racism has a very strong psychological impact on black people. It has a very bad psychological impact, and it really affects us in a a lot of ways that we probably don't even realize. I know it manifests in a lot of ways, and there's a lot of systematic racism that's going on as well. There's the blatant racism and all that, but then we have to deal with all the systematic racism that goes on. That's the racism that's in the system that we have to deal with. And that has a psychological impact on us. It causes us to be under a lot more stress. It causes us to have more, and if you're under a lot more stress, you're going to start having health problems, you know? And so I just, it's just sad, particularly if you're dealing with it in a job type situation. I've had jobs where I've had to deal with it, and if it's right there, right in your face, and it's like, how do you deal with that? I know it was extremely stressful for me. One job, I just had to break down and leave because I was getting chest pains, headaches, and all that kind of stuff, and I just decided that, hey, this is not worth it. And so it's like racism has a really, really strong psychological impact on African Americans. And it's like, how do we as African Americans deal with that? The only thing I can tell, the only thing I will say is that we don't want to give the enemy any fuel. We don't want to give Satan any fuel. We don't want to give him any fuel to, you know, bring us down. Like he bringing a lot of other people down. And you don't want to go out there and break the law. You don't want to go out there and retaliate and do something towards them. You want to continue to do what's right. It's very important for us to do what's right, and it's very important for us to. I know some black people probably feel like they want to retaliate. They want to feel like they want to strike back. But the worst thing you can do is retaliate. The worst thing you can do is strike back. And the thing that we have to do is we have to use the legal system, if we have to fight against this racism. But we physically should not do it. We physically should not retaliate against anybody, because it's just going to make it worse. It's just going to make the situation worse. And it's just not going to benefit us in the long run. It's just, we're going to make things worse on ourselves. Okay, guys, let me know. I might talk further. I think I probably might talk further on this subject. But you guys, let me know in the comment section of how do you deal with the anger. I know I have a difficult time dealing with all the anger because I'm really, really angry about this racism that's going on right now. I'm just being honest. I'm not going to sugarcoat. And guys, talk to me. Black men, black women, talk to me. Let me know in the comment section how you feel about racism and how it's affecting you. How do you deal with the anger? Talk to me. Talk to me, people. Let me know. God bless. Sweet June.